Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Got some big drumroll, please. Got some big news. After almost 50 episodes of the Driveway Marketing Podcast, we're making a shift. And thank you to my friends and my mastermind, colleagues and people who would talk to me about it. And it's going back to really what's something at my roots. It's something I've learned and talked about for the last 15 years. You've heard me thread through the episodes. And that it matters more now than ever. People say that all the time. Sounds cliche, but it's totally true. I'm looking right at the camera. Authenticity is the new currency. So we think about trust-based marketing. So Dan Kennedy wrote a book with a co-writer probably 15 years ago in similar uncertain times. Tony Robbins talks about trust, right? And so as entrepreneurs, we think about trust in different ways, right? So when we have big brands talking to us about trust, they want us to trust that they're going to be serving our best interest. And are they really? But as people in the mid-market, when I say mid-market, anything from a startup to a $50 million business, you're all thinking the same thing. How can I get my clients to trust me quickly, authentically, and to squash my competition? Well, going forward, the podcast is going to be interweaving how authenticity and authority will change how your dynamic works in business. And while I'm going to honor what the past has happened, and in this episode, I'm going to share with you some of my friends and colleagues and people I admire that have have created fantastic resources. But I'm here to tell you that game is played differently. I think there's an old term, what got you here is not going to get you there. There isn't an hour in the news where we're not talking about AI and data centers and how do I get found. I have to tell you that I have spent the last 6 months of my life becoming a student, being led by some of the brightest minds in the industry on how to do it and how to do it so that you show up in those results. And I got to tell you, early results are a fired birth control worker turned Disney executive turned Disneyfication process guy is showing up in AI results. A little coffee shop in Montana, a business coach in New Jersey, a interior design coach in Florida, and yes, even me are showing up. Because why? There's some common threads with all of them. One, they're authentic brands. That is one thing that's happening. They are not trying to reach the masses. We are not trying to reach the unwashed masses, as Dan says. We are not fighting for Google clicks and searches and get rich now stuff that is the opportunity crowd. These are people who find us through other ways. Here's the other thing. Almost every single one of them has or has been building an authority play. The authority play could be consistent posting. It could be contributions to in-person events. It could be their own podcast. It could be their own book. It could be all of the above. But the reality of it is that they've raised their hands and become authentic authorities in their business. And I'm going to share with you some of my favorite friends that are authorities. This one is, for those watching, this is Darcy Juarez. She wrote a book, The Insider's Guide to Writing a Lead Generation Book in 7 days or less. So I'm really fortunate. I have a very close or getting a closer relationship with Darcy. And she still talks about, you got to write a book because that's the first page of it. So it's available on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. It changed how I did my book. And it was a part of when Darcy was a part of GKIC and I was a part of the Ultimate Marketing Machine by Dave D. I learned how to write that book. It wasn't 30 days. It was 30 days of work over 3 months, but it was the first step into me raising my hand and becoming an authority. My other good friend, Jesse Lennon, shown here. It's what every savvy apartment owner needs to know about selling for maximum profit without getting crushed by capital gains taxes and how to put more money in your pocket. So this is Jesse's lead generation book. And I know as a result of that, I think he's made several acquisitions from owners looking to sell their multi-unit properties in the Richmond, Virginia area. And he has become a resource to that. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to become an even further resource. My friend Ray Hasselman, a somewhat eccentric tax attorney, former police officer over in the Fort Lauderdale, Broward County area, wrote, Get the IRS Off Your Back. He wrote all about that. So, and then some of the big boys, one of my early mentors, Adam Whitty, before, as he bought the GKIC brand and turned it into Magnetic Marketing, and Dan Kennedy, has this thing called authority marketing. Wow, why you should write a book about authorities. And if you want Adam to write a book for you, he will do that. They are deep six figures, but they are if you want to co-brand yourself with the Forbes books, and you have six figures to spend, you can go ahead and work with Adam. I don't have Dan's book with me here. He's got a couple books on the authority play. And I think one of the ones that got me to think about being an authority was Speak to Sell, that he co-wrote with Lisa Sasevich. So Lisa at the time was on stage speaking and using speaking gigs to sell. Again, she's an authentic, a very personable, very authentic author. And then, why, Bryan, why are you talking about books and stuff like that? That's so old school. Absolutely. But guess what? You can use that asset to do a lot of things. And I'm going to talk to you in other episodes about some of the how to do and why to do it. But today we're going to use two words, AI. Everybody wants to get found at AI. And Dan Kennedy just wrote a book called The Business Owner's Emergency Survival Guide for the AI Revolution. Now, I haven't read it, but I'm showing you guys a picture. I'll also have a link in the description to support Dan. For a lot of my customers are Planet Dan people. A lot of people I follow do that. It's all about how AI is something you cannot ignore, but you probably need to embrace, but not jump all in, because it's media is the Google slap later on. But there's an opportunity to take advantage of it while you can. And I will share with you my friend and Alliance mastermind leader, and someone I've got to know really well in the last 5 years. Vance Morris is in his experience system report, and he talks about he talks about being different and how you demand you differentiate or you're dead to them. And so he got a couple pages in Dan's book that says basically you have to skip the friction and make the experience fantastic. And I'll also put a link to get a copy of Vance's experience report in the description. So why is Bryan talking about all this? Well, one, I love talking about my friends, right? So that's the reality of it. And two, we're making a change. Our business is changing, and I want to share with you why we're doing it. Well, why are we doing it? Because there's a market opportunity. This is a paradigm shift. So 2 years ago, I would have talked to you about how these AIs are changing things. And I will tell you, in my general business, we use AI every day. We probably use more automations than flat up AI, and they're different. I talked in previous episodes about the difference between AI and automations. Basically, the AI, as you think of it, is free-form conversations with structured data to get back results, to do whatever you want with it. And automations are basically platform movers, right? You're moving data from platform A to platform B, and you need to format it, and then potentially make some decisions on it. And that's where AI comes into place. And we'll talk about some tools later on, but we're not going to talk about those today. But that's where the combination begins. And, Bryan, why does that matter? Because I just want to be an authority. I wrote a book. This should be great. Well, one of the things, we had this conversation in a group meeting I was in 2 weeks ago. Says, my boss wrote a book. I didn't write a book. How can I use that? Well, have you created the Bryan persona bot? So my team, I've talked about this before, has access to the Bryan bot. What would Bryan say? What is it? What is it about me? It's my sales training. It is my manifesto. It is the book I've published. It's the 2 books that I have not, that I use for lead magnets. It is standard operating procedures on how I work. So if they're talking to it and it's responding, it sounds like Bryan. You know why? Because it is me. I'm using its brain to support my team of people. So they say, what would Bryan say? And Bryan's going to have clear guidelines. Doing is better than not doing. Perfect is, version 1 is better than version none. Continual movement on multiple fronts. Right? And so that matters on how you're doing it. The question people always ask is, well, do I need it? Well, go ahead and go to your favorite chat model and find out what they say about you. And so, as we were all told to Google ourselves 5, 8, 10 years ago and find yourself to get your results, and part of the part of what you needed to do was you wanted to have your name and your kids' names as a domain, and that still matters. I did this as a part of my Alliance Mastermind just 2 weeks ago, and I asked, who is Bryan Durkin? And it says there are a couple of them, and the one you're probably thinking of as you Google it's Bryan Durkin, the longtime executive at the CME. The Chicago Mercantile Exchange. He spent 30 years in futures and financials. Great. I said, and it says important, if you meant a specific Bryan Durkin for someone local or LinkedIn or someone like yourself, there are multiple people. Can I narrow it down? So I asked it one question. He's a B2B guy. And I said, I got it. That narrows it way down. And I'm going to quote, you're likely talking about Bryan Durkin from MVP Team Pro, not the finance executive mentioned earlier. From what I know, based upon the world, it's about MVP Team Pro. The model is about building referral networks, not just cold lead generation. You're a specialist in connecting businesses, especially home services companies, which I agree with based on content. The focus is on warm intros, relationship building, and consistent outreach than typical digital marketing tactics. You work heavily with remote teams of VAs to execute outreach, tracking, and follow-ups. Our clients typically have high value projects. In this case, it mentions $10,000 jobs. So even a few solid jobs can produce serious revenue. I'm a B2B relationship marketer, a B2B relationship architect more than a traditional marketer. So if you were describing, it says, if you were to describe Bryan in one line, it would be, we'd rather you build referral pipelines and turn into relationships and then turn those relationships into predictable revenue. True story this morning. It is May 13th, 2006. One of Pam's clients came in. She also teaches this to her interior design coaching clients. One of her vendor referral partners, they just got working on a couple projects together, said, this is going great. I'm going to plug you in because we plan on doing 500 of these. That's not listed wrong. The text message was 500 of these over the next 3 years. Now, not if I were you, but if you had an opportunity that you could redo something 500 times over the next 2 to 3 years as a small business owner, that is fantastic. It says, and I asked it, who does he reference a lot? And if you're talking about the style and the approach, it's going to talk about referral and relationship first thinkers. Ivan Meisner, the founder of BNI. I don't do BNI, but I get that. Bob Berg, the go-giver, giving value first, long-term relationship mindset. Actually, I had a chance to meet Bob at an event a long time ago. I didn't know who he was, but he was fantastic. And Keith Ferrazzi, the never eat alone guy, building intentional business relationships. I once did a trip to New York City, and it was just when the never eat alone thing was happening. I went on my LinkedIn and said, hey, I'm going to New York City for 2 client meetings. I'm going on Tuesday and Thursday because it's far. I'd love to meet some of my LinkedIn people just to network and meet people for coffees. And I met 5 people over 2.5 days who were complete strangers. And 2 of them became longtime friends. So again, it's all about because I was committed to the relationship. And then here it goes again. Old school direct outreach and sales pro, right? Chet Holmes, market educator, Dream 100 concepts. 100% of what I believe in. Have a small group of highly targeted prospects to help you get your day. Dan Kennedy, surprised he wasn't first. Direct response, but especially the idea of owning relationships and the list that gets you there. And then Stu Heineke, how to get a meeting with anyone. I was not familiar with that one, but that's crazy. And that says, this is my strongest philosophical backbone. Some ideas about strategic partnerships and relationship deal making. Jay Abraham and Dean Jackson. So I haven't talked about Jay a lot in this podcast, but I have in my personal relationships and in personal relationships. And Dean Jackson, didn't know that, but I know Dean. Actually, I may have partaken in some libations with him at a Dan Kennedy event a long time ago. Didn't know who he was, but I was having a great time. And then service experience through my network, it specifically mentions Vance. Here's who I don't reference. Not big on Russell Brunson and funnel heavy thinking, typically for smaller transaction prices. Not big on paid ads as the primary growth driver, and not big on scale first relationships matter. So it's saying I'm a hybrid. So anyway, I thought that was interesting, but here's what's even more interesting. That's my response on ChatGPT. What's your response on ChatGPT? And why do I know it's important? Well, here's what's happening in the world of ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude and Perplexity and whoever else. Those media are there. And so what we've done is we've created a authority first approach that we're doing. And I'm going to share with you 2 minor results. One is a little coffee shop in Billings, Montana. 5 months ago, we were fighting to get 500 to 700 page views a month and maybe a handful of transactions. We have since November 1st of 2025 to now early May, his online commerce business, which we were focusing on, has just over doubled. So these are not massive numbers because it's a small thing, but it just over doubled But what is kind of the money in the bank thing is we have taken our authority first process and using something we call the invisible authority, which he's really not a part of. We have experts that do that. He is ranking, his blogs are ranking. They're getting 10,000, 19,000, 38,000, 27,000 views per month that are directly leading to transactions. What does that mean? Someone reads an article about the caffeine levels of cold brew. And when you rank third or fourth for caffeine levels of cold brew, it's getting to summer, someone wants to do cold brew. There's a good chance that's going to show up in your AI results for Google, because Google hasn't disappeared yet. People still go to Google. And it's showing up on their AI results as well as ChatGPT. Now, time will tell how it changes, but I do know for a fact that before we modified our approach, he wasn't showing up at all. So that's the good news. The bad news is, ready for it? The establishment isn't ready for it. So if you have an established supporter, you have an established agency, you have an established person who's kind of telling you information, I'm here to share with you that the results are dramatically different. It is off the cliff chasmatic. While I wasn't necessarily a technical digital marketing expert 6 months ago from the syntax of how to do it, because I'm a former tech CEO and had developers working for me, lived in the tech space until I sold and got out of my business and did some consulting back in it, but I regret it. You've heard me talk about that. I have been in tune with how technology can change businesses. Why? That's why my company doesn't have 50 people, because we automate as much as we can. We automate call recordings. We automate moving from platform A to platform B. We do all kinds of crazy stuff, and we embrace. I've built 11 agents, self-supporting agents for my team to support themselves, whether it's, syntax, whether it's operational questions, whether it's state of procedures. So I get the tech. So I'm just letting you get the tech, but the proof is in the pudding. The proof is we're doing this, and some of the brightest minds in the world have created these frameworks. These are guys that have started companies like one you may have heard of called The Digital Marketer. We're following their frameworks. I'm certified in their AEO strategies. My team is implementing it and improving upon it. So it's this unbelievable world, unbelievably fantastic resource that we all need to think about. And we need to think about how are we going to get there, not looking in the rearview mirror. As Tony Robbins says, we drive our cars with our windshields in front of us, open in front of us, and we look in the rearview mirrors, and they're tiny. There's a reason why we don't drive backwards, right? And that is exactly, I've always said that, but it's an amazing time to do that. So anyway, I wanted to kind of share with you kind of the big aha moments and share with you what is going to be happening going forward on the podcast. I'm going to have Darcy on. I'm going to have Jack Turk on, who was a copywriter. I'm certainly going to have Vance back on to talk about what he's doing. I'm going to have some of my other colleagues on that are talking about how AI has changed and authority has changed it, and how it can apply to any business. Whether you are an e-commerce brand serving, you're selling coffee, you're selling food products, you're selling lipstick, whatever it is. So you have a relatively, minor delivery method to more complex, IT or industrial applications. The authority play always wins. If you listen to one of my earlier episodes where I talked about and I referenced this the idea of social media. So, TikTok's a party, Instagram is a rave, Facebook is a class reunion, LinkedIn is the place where businesses hang out. And hopefully you are posting on LinkedIn as the person that everyone wants to talk to. And now by combining what you say and where you put it in certain formats, you're going to move to the top of the list faster than you speak. I'll finish on this. It is a month ago, I was with Pam at a Design Edge show, a small boutique show in Orlando, Florida. And we walked around the room, and I kid you not, must have been 15 people with me that came up to Pam and says, I love your stuff. This is amazing. Keep going. And she's like, who are you people? Well, guess what? They listen to her podcast. They see her on social. They read her blogs, and they get her emails. And that has opened our doors to lots of other interesting things going forward. So without authority, nothing happens. And if no one knows about it, right? If you've written a book and no one knows about it, what good is it? So there you go. So hopefully today's episode will provide you some insights up to where things were, where they are going at a pace that is dramatical. With my consulting clients, we talk all the time. They want to get caught in the weeds about how they should figure this out. And when I tell them, we've already figured it out, let my folks train you, because we've already blend on it. We spent a ton of time doing it, and it's our opportunity to get to share those resources with people we work with, which is an amazing thing to do. So anyway, hope this was great for you. This episode has been a long time coming. In the next couple of episodes, we're going to talk a little bit about what this authority hub looks like. Whether you do it yourself, whether we help you, however it gets implemented, it doesn't matter. Start with being authentic and being true to yourself and being the voice of your business. And if you're not going to be the voice of your business, then get out of the way and let someone else, I say someone else, let another voice become the voice of the business. So that's it for today. Have a great day. I am getting ready to host 20 amazing entrepreneurs coming from as far away as California, Montana, New York, New Jersey, Baltimore, Georgia, Florida, Texas. So I'm looking forward to that. I'll give you guys a recap on that next week. Thanks very much for your time. See you on the next episode of the Authority Driven Podcast.